Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. We are here in Christiansburg at the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library, and we are doing the official book release and book signing / discussion for His Turn When Enough Was Enough. I am here with 4 of the authors from the book. And so anyone have any questions? If you are watching us and you have a question about the book, or you have a question for one of the authors, please type your question in. Everybody has their lives up, so type in a question. One of us will see it, and we will answer that question. But we're going to start off talking about the book and each one of their stories in the book. We're going to go from my left to right, your right to left. So we're going to do that, and we're going to also have them read maybe a small excerpt from each one of their chapters, and then they can discuss what they were thinking when they were asked to participate in this, and what was the final decision for them jumping on board and being transparent. So we're going to start with Pastor Jefferson Jones here on the end, looking spiffy in his blue suit. So we're going to start with him first. So Pastor JJ, go ahead and open this up and let them know, how was your experience in coming on board and writing?
Awesome. Well, what's up, everybody? Jefferson Jones here. I met Lomax. Wow, it's been over, 3 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been over 3 years that we met at Chebolik, which is the officer school for those who want to become chaplains in Columbia, South Carolina, Fort Jackson. And the Lord, He just really opened up an opportunity for us to get to know each other better, to learn about our what we had done in ministry as well as military, and she just really took a lead in being a strong voice in my life, and then also in many others that were in that class in our platoon, and it was such an amazing experience. But you never know what God is planning to do or what He's going to do when you're in the palm of His hand. And it makes me immediately think, before I share, just about the book, just to think of how, your good steps and your bad steps are ordered by the Lord, and how and it's not so much for your purpose, it's for His purpose, for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And so I had that experience, and, we connected at Chebolik, and then, once we left, we stayed connected. Just continued to talk, and I noticed the things that she was doing in ministry and how she was launching and how she was trailblazing, and the Lord put on her heart to start an organization for men, and she asked me to come to the table because she knew, as a woman, as a wise woman, that she needed other men to speak into the lives of men. And now we're here, and we're just continuing to make history. As she popped off with that the other day, talking about making history, and it just really stuck with me. And so now, she presented this opportunity last year. It's like, man, y'all need to write a book. You need to put together a book. And I'm like, what? We're gonna do what? And it had already been in my spirit, for a few years. I knew that writing was a part of who I am and what God had in store for my life. And I knew that this was a stepping stone for what God wanted to do in this opportunity, to be able to share a part of my story. And so, I'll stop there for now.
Because he is a preacher, y'all. He is a preacher, and he will talk and talk and talk. But one of the amazing things was, like he said, you just never know what God is going to do, and when He tells you to move on something, you actually move on it. And when we were at Chebolik, for that training, it's just like we gravitated towards one another, and he's a clown, y'all. He is a big clown, everybody. So if y'all don't know, he is a big clown, but he's anointed, and he's anointed to speak into the lives of people, but mainly men. He is anointed to do that. And so when God had placed it on my heart to start this organization, and it's called HIS, HIS, and it stands for Healing, Inspiring, and Supporting, because men need healing, men need inspiring, men need to be supported just like the women. And he was one of the 4 that God put on my heart to reach out to start this organization. So when God put it on my heart again to get these guys together to do a book, of course, he was one of the names, and I just put it out there, and I was like, whoever says they're in, that's who we're rolling with. And it was really because everyone asked, like, how did you get the chapters to flow and get in that particular order? I didn't. It was just whoever gave me their chapter, that's who was going to be chapter one. So as they rolled in, that's how they ended up. But they ended up perfectly. And one person's story flowed from the next person's story, and even the scriptures that they use all connected. And I was over there trying to edit, and I was boo-hooing, and then I was mad at one point. If you haven't read the book, you're going to be mad, you're going to be sad, you're going to be up, you're going to be down, you're going to want to strangle, and then you're going to want to cuddle. And so it will take you on a roller coaster, but it is so good. And I'm so thankful to just be in the midst of these guys, and thankful to everyone who's watching and to those who are here with us for being a part, because you guys are part of history, because this has not been done in the African American community. There has not been, and we have an author who's not here, but there has not been a book that has 5 African American men in it telling the truth about their life and being transparent. So it is an honor to be here, and we thank you guys for coming out and being with us as well. So next we have over here is Arthur Washington, Reverend Arthur Washington, who is also in the military. So we're surrounded by military men too. It's history. Who's also in the military. He's in the Army, and so I'm going to let him speak and give his take on becoming part of his organization and being an author.
Hello again, Arthur Washington Sr., stationed down at Fort Hood, Texas. I got connected with Dr. Lomax through a mutual friend who used to be a senior religious affairs, Lucille Singleton, and so I found out they were together. And so we got connected, and we had been corresponding for almost about a year. And then all of a sudden, she said, "Hey, I want to add you to my group." I said, "Fine." The next thing I know, about 6 months later, she was like, "Hey, I see an announcement on that came through our group page." She said, "I want to know who wants to write a book." I've never thought about writing a book. I've never even imagined my name on somebody's book. And then that kind of stirred up some things inside. And then at first I was kind of hesitant. I knew if I did it, what I wanted to talk about, but I wasn't sure if I could really step forward. But with God's help, I was able to, because I knew that it wasn't about me, but it was about getting it out there so that way others can hear that you can recover. That just because life deals you a hard blow, you can't recover from it.
Say that, sir.
So she said, "Hey, I want to know who's going to do it." And without even thinking about it, I typed, "Hey, I'll do it." And I think I did it because she had mentioned her father was already the first person. So I said, "Hey, I'll do it." And then I was the second one. And then I said, "Okay, I'll just start working on it." But to see this at this point, in my 21 years of military, and then to be able to sit here and to say that I'm a co-author, I'm still pinching myself, and I'm just like, God, thank you. So it's I'm still there. So
You can make my eyes sweat, bro. You can make my eyes sweat over here.
but
Winter allergies.
But I'll say the biggest thing, and I've mentioned it to this group, is the fact that this is the first time we're really getting together.
Wow.
But we've done a video, and the first video that we talked about the book and everything else, we were doing more laughing than anything else. So that told me one thing. Number one, we could get along. And that I felt like with this group of ministers, we can minister together for a long time. And then I felt God's presence being able to keep us, connected. And so this is a blessing, because like she said, I've never seen 5 African American males doing anything together. You get a group of us together, 9 times out of 10, we arguing, and we fussing, and we having a disagreement. And you may have 3 that may be together, and then you have a few others that may not be together. But for this group, we stay laughing. All of us are jokesters here. So, but it's a blessing, and I'm just honored.
And so now with this one, he make it seem like he just was like, "Yep, I'm in there. Boom, we gonna tell the truth." I was like, okay, he was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. I was like, oh, you're gonna do it. No. I said, no, you're gonna do it. I start pulling rank. I started pulling rank and said, you're gonna do it, soldier. But no, he did it. And when he started writing, he couldn't stop. And I think that was for most of them. They couldn't stop because once you get going and everything that's in there starts to flow out, you want to keep going, you want to keep going, you want to keep going. And I told them, it's like, hey, y'all, this is an anthology. Save some of that for a book 2, possibly, everybody, a book 2, or for a solo project and tell your entire story in a book. But it was amazing because he and I had never, ever met except for on Facebook. And so the first time we ever really, really talked was through a video chat. And when we got in the video chat, it was just like everybody knew each other. And so it was just a lot of kidding and joking and things like that going on. But when I read his story, I was like, you know what? When I see you, I want to punch you. But then I want to hug on you too at the same time. Because it's emotional. It really is. It's emotional. And so it's awesome to even be sitting here with him in person. And everybody is always sort of like has this awe-inspiring moment when they meet me. But I'm the one that's awe-inspired to be sitting here amongst these guys who open themselves up. Because normally men don't do that. It comes off as them being weak and it's like they don't want anyone to see them vulnerable. But they got vulnerable in this book, real raw. And so that's what made it so amazing. And it went bestseller to these guys 24 hours after we put it out there. It hit the bestseller list. So we know it's just nothing but God that did it. So moving right along, here to my right is Elder Tyrone Downs, who is also in here. Now, I met him, when was that? 2008? 2008 when I first moved to California, and we got licensed as ministers together. And so been a part of his family and a part of his life for a long, long time. And so when I put it out there for them to be a part of the book, he jumped on it as well. And his story is very, very, very vulnerable. Something that men will not talk about at all. And the statistics are out there. They're low, but it's just because people don't talk about it. And like I said, after everybody introduces themselves, we'll go down the line and let everybody read an excerpt from that book. I'm telling y'all, I hope y'all have Kleenex. I hope people have Kleenex. But we're going to let him talk about his experience, also being part of his organization.
It's just an awesome experience to be a part of an organization. Like I said, me and Dr. Lomax known each other for a long time, licensed together and everything, and talked through a lot of different scenarios, and just growing together in ministry and going into the chaplaincy, all kind of things we've been through. And so this experience was automatic. I was already trying to put some stuff on paper. It just gave me the opportunity to actually expound on it more in a specific way than where I wanted to go. And it just was a great opportunity. And just, of course, to meet all the fellas. Of course, it's our first time here, and we talked about this on a show we did on online. That how our stories came together. So we didn't get a chance to read each other's stories beforehand. All we had to do was take out part, send it to her, get back for corrections, and just seeing how it flows together is just amazing to see how God works through all of us, 5 different people, 6 different people coming together, never met face to face, and it just was an awesome experience, and there's just more to follow, and to be a part of this his team. I probably the youngest on the his team.
Yeah,
I was like,
no. I think Elder Washington. I mean Elder Davis. I think he's the youngest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's younger than us.
Yeah. So it's
Yes,
just,
I think Davis is younger.
Just being one of the new guys on the team is like, you're doing a book, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it. Just had the experience with it before, and it's just a great opportunity. And it's just to see how God is blessed. The reviews we've got is just amazing to see how far it's reached.
Amen. And so, and with him, he did hash this out and get it in there. I still had to tug on a little bit because, he a Marine. So, you had to stay on them. But, it's the Army Marine thing going on up here, but I'm not going to start it. I won't start it. Got the Army on this side, got the Marines on this side. I'm in the middle as the chaplain, so I have to keep the peace. But it was amazing having him come on board, and then reading his story. I knew a little bit about his story, but I didn't know the inside part of the story until I actually wrote it. And I did not allow them to see each other's stories before I put them into the book. They weren't allowed to read it. Any corrections that were made, they had to do it individually with their own story. So I was working like a mad woman, but they did not get to see the whole thing come together until it was a book. And so I'm just honored that they trusted me enough with their work, and I told them that I would be respectful of their work and treat it with dignity, and I believe I did it with God's help, as we always say. But it was amazing. Y'all hear my voice going up an octave because this last one over here, all the way at the end, that is my father, who is in the book. That is Elder Joe McClure. And I didn't even know half of the stuff that he went through that's in this book. And so I was just like boo-hooing, but I'm about to cry right now because just to have him part of this book. Just to have him part of something, because we always wanted to do ministry together. We always wanted to do ministry together, and I didn't know God was going to do it this way, and to see the man that he is, because as a child growing up, he didn't get to be a huge part of my life. He was in the military, and I tell people this story all the time, and he didn't know, but I used to pray all the time, God saved my dad, so 30 years later, we were talking on the phone, and he was letting me know, that God had changed his life and he was in ministry. And so it was a huge deal. And of course, when I started his organization, he had to be a part of it. So I said I wanted him to jump on board, and he came on board. And then when I went home to visit this last time, and I said, hey, Dad, we're writing a book and I want you to be in it. And it was so funny because he had been working on some stuff, and he pulled out all this notebook, and he said, I got like 2 more pages and you can have it. And so before I went back to California, I had his story in my hands. And so it was an amazing thing. And God has just been doing some amazing stuff. And I'm going to turn it on over to him and let him talk about it before I just start the whole waterworks again. Because I'm a watering pot. I'm very sensitive.
Yes, my name is Joe McClure, and it does me good to know that God has blessed my daughter not just to be a sayer, but a doer. She makes things happen. And when she came home and she asked me about doing this, sometimes we had to learn that when God says walk, you walk, and then when He says run, then you run, and not walk, because He have a designated time and a place already appointed for you to do things. And this just happened to be just one of that designated time. And God blessed me to be able to do this. A lot of times we have things that we want to say, but we can't say it to just anyone. And in this case here, scenario, you have something that you want to say. You can't, when I say you can't tell anybody, because they will get it wrong. So if you're going to tell it right and let the whole world hear how you told it your way. So this is what also inspired me to do it this way. And so when she asked me to do the book, and like I said, I never knew these other gentlemen here. I just knew they was all service connected. And I'm an ex-Marine. So I said, well, it's going to be a wonderful thing. We could all just get together. Like I said, we're all different age groups. I guess I am the oldest here. So.
Yes, you are, Daddy.
But God never stopped working. He always had you to do things at his appointed time. Like I said, it just does me an honor to be able to be a part of this. So.
Amen. Everybody's joking. and talking about my dad and stuff. But it has been a phenomenal experience because it's something I never thought I would do either. Because this was my first time actually publishing, for anybody. So I normally will publish some of my own stuff, and I also have a publisher. Hey, Bridget, if you're watching, ma'am. But this was my first time publishing something for someone else. And again, I was like, okay, God, they're trusting me with this. Let this go right. Now, it didn't go right the first time. We had to publish, unpublish, and publish and unpublish. And even though they are some hardcore men folk, and that's what I call men folk, ooh, they were like women when they gave me their stories. They were like, so when is the book? I was like, okay, it doesn't happen like that. I'm like, it doesn't happen like that. You don't give me your stories and boom, it's a book. So they were like, well, where's the book? And I was like, okay, there's a process. This is a process. And through trial and error, we got it, and we finally got the finished product the way that it needed to be, the way that we know God intended it to be. And it has it's changing lives. And I always tell people it really had nothing to do with me. It was just God just dropping the seed, and I said, okay, let me move on it, and they did the work. I think my part was easy, the publishing part. I think my part was easy. It was them that did the hard work and saying, okay, I'm going to open myself up, and I'm going to let the world see what I went through, because as y'all see, they're all dressed up and nice and spiffy, but behind that was vulnerability. Behind that was a lot of tears. Behind that was a lot of heartache, disappointment, just a lot of that, and pain and anger. A lot of that stuff went on. And so they were like, well, I'm going to open up. And again, some of their family members didn't even know they had experienced some of this stuff. And that's why we did it, because we also want men, especially men, but everyone to know that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to go through some things, and even when you go through some things, God will bring you through those things, and he will still use you for his glory. No matter how messed up and jacked up that you were, he will still use you, because now he can use you to go reach somebody else who was jacked up and messed up, and they'll see how God brought you out and cleaned you up and set you where you are. And so that's the beauty of this. And again, they never met, and none of them had never met until this trip, like face to face. So it has just been an awesome experience. And so now I'm going to go down the line. I'm going to let everybody read maybe like 2 or 3 lines from their story in the book, just to give y'all a gist of what's in there. And so we'll start with you, Pastor JJ.
Okay. I want to share, something short and sweet. That way you'll still want to buy the book. No, just read the whole chapter.
I think they're sold on the book. No, you got to buy the book to read the chapter.
So here's what I want to share. It says, here's something to consider about the connection between passivity and procrastination. These two are cousins. They will always work well together. Graham Cook said, passivity and procrastination are habits of the flesh. We are dabbling at life rather than being engaged with it. Successful people do not drift to the top. It takes focus, discipline, and energy, all of which the Lord Jesus has in abundance. That's his quote. And then I say, procrastination is a destiny killer, but God is a way maker. He is going to provide a way for you to kill procrastination in your life. You have to say yes to his process. And so that's a short segment. And you notice I said passivity and procrastination are cousins. There's a strong relation, a strong connection between them. And part of the story of my life is, even from childhood, and you'll see in the chapter, is overcoming passivity. And how, as time went on in my life, even from my childhood, that I allowed certain things to continue and snowball into causing me to put things off continually, even as an adult, even as a husband, as a leader, as a father. And over time, I had to come to the place where enough was enough. And so in my story, you'll see throughout the story, I'm talking about overcoming passivity, overcoming procrastination and coming to a place in my life where I'm not giving anyone any more passes, to allow certain things to go on. Because for us as people, each of us have to make that choice and say, this is my boundary. This is my limit, because I'm not going to allow certain behaviors or things to go on in my life, because it's going to impact people who are in my life. It's going to impact my family. It's going to impact my health. It's going to impact my business. It's going to impact my ministry. It's going to impact everything that my hand is connected to. And it starts with me. And it was no one else's responsibility.
Right.
To deal with issues that were going on in my life. I had to make that choice internally. And until whoever's listening, and if you're watching, if you're dealing with passivity, if you're dealing with procrastination, the two are related. And if you can get to the root of what's going on in your life, I believe that the Lord will present an opportunity for you to have breakthrough and transformation in your own life, but you have to be hungry for that transformation.
Yep. Good. Love it. Right. Reverend Washington.
All righty, let me give out my little. All right. Secondly, I had withheld a secret from my wife that could have cost me my marriage. In my phone conversation with my wife, I shared that I was a victim of sexual assault from the age of 9 until the age of 11. The phone went silent. When you hear dead silence, you might as well say, Houston, we have a problem. I was not sure that after my deployment, if I was going to still have a wife. For 10 years, I had withheld this from my wife, and now sharing this was not good. One thing I have realized is that God has a way of getting things clear and out in the open. My moment, or when enough was enough, was the fact that I could no longer hide that. I was dealing with two things. You heard one, and as you read the book, you'll hear the other. You'll read the other. But for this one, this was one that really penetrated me at the heart, because it affected me when I was little. And like many of us, we wear masks when we're hurt, and we tend to push hurt down so deep that nobody will know us. And then that's when we start acting out of character, and that's when we start to be somebody that we're not. Mm-hmm. And for the longest, even though I've been called to preach, even though I've been in the ministry, even though I've been blessed to, go in the military and was serving and deploying, but I did not know who I was, because I felt like I had a mask on. And the person who really was supposed to know me did know me. And that was my wife. And I kept that from her, because, as you know, that's a taboo. Men don't talk about that. That's not a topic of discussion. Right. And so with that, I had made a promise to God, but we all know that when you make a promise to God, you gotta make sure you come through with that promise. But I will say this, that was my breaking point. I had had enough. I could no longer do that to my wife. My kids didn't even know. And I just now got that right with my son and my daughter. So I wanted to share that, because there's not enough men talking about it. There's not enough men sharing it, because we try to be so macho, so strong, and I'm okay. I don't cry. Look, I'll cry on you in a minute, but I'm still a man.
Amen.
Yep.
I know what God created me. I know who I am, and I know whose I am. And so with that, I can sit here confident, but I'm glad that I was able to share that.
Amen.
Right. Tyrone.
I'm trying to think which part to read this time, so I'll start here. We tried several different counseling sessions, from professional and base to chaplain. I even had my own counselor, and throughout all this, I remember one of the sessions and my therapist saying, when are you going to get off the roller coaster? Enough was enough, and it was time to get off the roller coaster. Yeah, I'll stop. I mean, it's a lot more to that, but I think that's when the name of the book was Enough Was Enough, was like, oh, perfect. I just experienced this traumatic season, and it's a season, of course. Remember, a season. The season don't last so long. Just experienced this traumatic season that could have went the other way, as in like my career could have been gone, everything I worked for could have been gone. A lot of things could have happened. And throughout one of my counselors, she's like, when are you going to get out the roller coaster? And I think that's the time we have to, that was the same, that's the same saying to me, when enough was enough. When are we going to change when are we going to change something that we're doing, not doing, to affect our situation in the way that God want us to be? And I think that was the biggest portion. That's why when enough, oh yeah, I got it. When we get out the roller coaster. And that's a theme that I had going through that season. And that impacted, of course, me and, of course, my family in so many different ways. And definitely, and we're on the other side of that. And I think that was crucial for me in writing this section of the book.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, last but not least, my dad, Elder Joe McClure.
I'll just read you a little bit of this here, because I think this here kind of hits home for everybody sometimes, before you get to the point of where you say enough is enough. Now, I have always known that there was a God, but I figured that if he didn't bother me, I wasn't going to bother him. I wasn't going to ask him for nothing. That was my way of thinking at that particular time, and whatever was going to happen, you figure whatever's going to happen anyway. So, but it's one thing about it, when things start happening real bad to you, see, we don't need them until something happens real bad. And then when things start happening real bad, the first thing we do, we get ready to call on God. Even the people that don't even believe in God, they're going to start calling on God because they need some help. They done got to a point in their life that ain't nobody else can help you. Your people can't help you. Your friends can't help you, because most of the time, your friends, they just want you when you got something. And so then when you run out of everything, now you need somebody with something. So what the funny part about it is, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to leave it alone, is I went to a preacher one time and met the preacher. He told me, he said, well, why don't you come on and go to church? And I said, go to church? I said, well, it's too many hypocrites in church. And he told me, he said, one more won't hurt.
Amen.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. And if you are not right now convinced that you need this book, and if not even for you, but for a man in your life, or a woman who has a man in her life that is experiencing depression or anything like that, or low self-esteem, I'm telling you guys to get a copy of the book, not just because we're here, but because you see it as a tool that's going to help someone. And I'm going to read just a little bit of the foreword, because they asked me to write the foreword and the introduction for the book. And so I'm just I'll read that part, and I guarantee you, y'all gonna buy this book. Gonna buy this book. So in 2012, God placed on my heart a ministry geared towards men. I had no idea where to begin or even how to get it started. Me, an outreach for men. Did God forget that I was a woman? No. He knew exactly what he was doing and why. Later, I discovered that it was a prelude to my purpose. So in 2017, 4 of my fellow brothers in Christ and I launched his outreach ministry. So it's no surprise when the opportunity came for the members of the ministry to share their stories with the world, I accepted the invitation to write the foreword with a humble spirit and a gratitude in my heart. I have written my fair share of books and participated in countless writing projects, but never have I been moved as spiritually and emotionally as I have with this next bestseller, His Turn When Enough Was Enough. These 5 writers left no stone unturned as they unashamedly share their anger, pain, disappointment, joy, and contentment. This anthology is a reminder that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. They express how no one is exempt from the tests and trials of life, and this book is a testament that an encounter with God can change your mind and your life. I could go on, but these are their testimonies to share and their stories to tell. It's my prayer that you don't just read their words, but you feel their hearts. And so at this moment, we're going to flip the script and we're going to put it on you guys, and you can ask them questions. And because this book is so transparent, I don't think there's a question that you can't ask that you won't get an answer to. So we're going to turn it on to the audience, and we're going to have you guys ask questions of the authors. Yes, sir.
What gave you the idea to write this book, and what brought all of you together? I think it's two questions.
Yes, sir. The idea came from, I was just sitting there and it just kind of dropped in my spirit. I also write books, and I have books out there, and I was just like, how awesome would it be for these gentlemen? And I didn't know it was just going to be 5 because the organization is big, and I just put it out there. And I said, how awesome would it be for these guys to get together and tell their truth? And then how they all came together is that we're all part of this organization called His, that God laid on my heart. And these were the 4, well, there's 5, he just couldn't be here. But those were the ones who said, I'm in. And I gave a deadline. And I said, by this deadline, who's ever in, that's who's in the book. And that's how it came about. You're welcome.
I would just like to add to that. There's a void amongst men when it comes to expressing emotions, expressing pain, expressing trauma, expressing different things that we go through in our lives. And I think another element that really that pushed us to do this and to have this experience is for men to really know that it is okay. It's okay to be weak. That's a part of being a human being. And I think it's time for more men to come forward, whether it's with their families or friends or with their wife or people that are very close to them, to really let someone know what's going on the inside of them and stop packing. So I believe that that this journey that we've taken is an opportunity that will cause men to rise up and to come out of their mess and to really, be hungry for healing. You're welcome.
Yep. Because sometimes a lot of what's going on in homes and things with the men, we often look at it like, he's angry all the time, or, he always, is fussy and he's never satisfied. But we never stop to say, well, what's going on? Yeah. That's the big question. We never stop to say, what's going on? Or we never stop to say, hey, how are you? Not just how was your day, and then we go into how was your day? Well, honey, the kids did this, and this. But how are you? Not just how was your day, but how are you? How are you emotionally? Because sometimes that's what it's going to take for men to open up. Not just for you saying how are you, but how are you emotionally? And it opens up the door to let them know that you care about their emotional health. And you care about their emotional well-being, and that it's okay, and they are in a safe space to share that. And because they're not just going to open up and just say, hey, honey, I'm feeling like this, I'm kind of depressed, I'm kind of down. They're not going to do that. Sometimes we have to open that segue to let them know, hey, this is a safe space, and you can share that with me, and it's not going anywhere. Anybody else have questions for our authors out here? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
It's not a question, it's more of a story.
Yes, ma'am.
I have found that anger, the root of that is deep pain. I have a son who will be 30 on Monday. I'm going to buy 2 books.
Amen.
One for him and one for me. He has served going on 10 years now in the Air Force. And I've seen a large, praise God, difference from the beginning to now, where I prayed for him and I let him know that he would scoff at that to begin with. No, it was okay. That's your belief, that's your ways. that's not the Lord's way. And I kept praying. Now he's opening up more and more and more and more. And I'm so grateful to God that he's opening up and talking. And I thank you all so much for sharing your stories with us. Because having a child, a son, to open up and talk to me as much as he has been such a blessing. It's only have to be from God. I know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'll also comment, along with what you had said last about that not enough of the men were talking about the deep, difficult things. I'm getting close to finishing the first draft of my memoir about child loss, and I had tried to contact one of my ex-husbands to see if he would want to share something from the father's heart to go in. And even what he submitted to me was kind of just surface. And I even asked him later after reading what he'd sent me if there was anything more deep inside that he wanted to share. And he's like, I felt like I
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, so it's true. It can be difficult for the men to do that. And the only deep stuff that was included in his story is what I witnessed.
Right.
It's what I witnessed. Because I guess I could go there and come back and tell it. But I don't know if he's in that place.
Right. And with that, you have to remind yourself, a reminder to yourself that it's their story to tell. And we can't say, okay, oh my gosh, enough already. We can't say that, even though we're tired of hearing it. We're tired of seeing them go through this. We're tired of seeing them go through that. The same thing over and over. It has to come from them. They have to come to a point themselves and say, okay, it's enough. I've had enough. Enough is enough. I've had enough. Not you've had enough and my family's had enough. Okay, I've had enough. And I think that's been one of the biggest obstacles with men going through and getting through trauma is because they want to get over it and get through it because their families want them to get over and get through it. And they're not over it. And they haven't worked through it. But it's about making the family happy. But then they're still suffering in silence. And so that was part of the gist of this book, to let men know it's like, look, open up, and it's okay if you're not okay. And it's okay to tell someone that you're not okay. And of course, be guarded in who you tell, because like my dad said, you can't tell everybody everything, but be guarded in who you tell. But it's okay. And this, I believe this platform is going to be a springboard for more of this type of stuff we're going to see, with more men coming forward and say, hey, and able to go to another brother and say, hey, I'm not okay. After they read the stories and say, I'm there. My wife is not going to understand what you went through. My wife is not going to understand what you went through. My wife is not going to understand that, hey, I had a low self-esteem problem. She's not going to understand because she'll be like, man, please, whatever, low self-esteem, yeah, the whole thing. Go watch Oprah and you'll be okay. You know what I mean? So, that's what we do. We watch Oprah and we're fine. But it comes to a point where they need other men who've experienced that and other men who have opened up and who have worked through it, because there is no getting over it. And I want to speak that to men and women out there who are dealing with someone like that. There's no such thing as getting over it. It's getting through it.
Amen.
There's no such thing. And you saying get over it, and then the next day there's like, fine, we won't talk about it anymore. And then you'll start to see it just manifest in other ways. And so that's what you don't want. So you have to let them deal with the grief. And it is grief, and it is loss, because some of their stories, it's a loss for them. Like, my manhood is gone. Like in his case, that's what most people would think, because he's a man, and men would be like, man, there goes my manhood. So it's something they have to work through and get through, not get over. Anyone else? Yes.
I know that like the main subject of this book is about like, hey, men have feelings too. And I read like a snippet of my dad's chapter, and it was about like, you know, it just speaking up for yourself and stuff. But even as a kid, my question is should you ever like check on your father emotionally?
Yes, you should, Abraham. Yes, you should. It is okay if you see your dad going through something and you see him struggling and you recognize it. It is okay for you to say, "Hey, Dad, are you okay emotionally?" Yeah. It is okay. You can do that. Aww. It is
That's my son.
That's his son. That's his son. But that's her child. But he's mine while I'm here. Okay.
I want to read his book.
He's working on some books. He's coming. It's coming. He's working on some books. Anyone else have any?
Let me answer Abraham's question a little bit more. I'm gonna answer it a little bit more. It is very important that you do. I have four daughters, so my younger two are twins, so they see a change in me and their mom before anybody else does. So it is very important that you ask those questions at your age, because my daughters are 11. They're twins. One is closer to me and one is closer to her mom, but they're the first ones to pick up on when somebody's depressed, when things are going bad, when things are going good. Yes, it is very important. That is a crucial thing.
Yes, sir.
As a minister, trying to be transparent, occasionally I get blowback from parishioners. Hey, stop, you're a minister. Have you experienced that? And how has transparency impacted your current ministries?
Let me answer that.
Okay, go ahead. We all are pastors and ministers. Oh, we've gotten it.
I haven't gotten any pushback, but I think some folks were startled when I mentioned it, because at that point I was like, I understand what you're saying, but this needs to be said. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? Hey, God allows me to put it in a message. There's nothing you can do. Because the one thing that I will not let anybody do is dictate what God has given me to preach. That will not happen.
Right.
And so with that, I've never been, ashamed or afraid. May have been a little bit nervous, but you know what? I stepped out on faith because I knew at the end, God was going to take care of it. And that I knew that my story, needed to be told.
I want to add to that.
Yes, sir.
It's a reality, but it's not a hair shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes,
It
sir.
is.
Yes, sir.
So what I want to add to that, I want you to think about the life of Jesus. Jesus was very careful with who he shared, who he was with. Mm-hmm. There were limits. And so notice he had the 12 disciples, come follow me. And they said, yeah, Jesus, we're going to follow you. But notice when he went to the garden to pray, who was able to go there with him?
Amen. Right.
You got to be careful.
Yeah.
And as a leader and with your flock, you got to say, okay, Lord, can this one handle the weight of my story? Can this one handle the weight of my vulnerability? Because I could tell some, like, I'm having a tough moment and this is how I feel, but then there's another group that I can tell the deep part of what's really going on in my life, if that makes sense. So you got to be able to be very sensitive spiritually. You have to have a spiritual awareness of those in your circle, and you also have to have a mental, emotional awareness and a personal awareness, so that you'll know, like, okay, can I go this far with this one? Because some you can't. And so there are levels to this thing, and and for me as a leader, I've learned over the years in ministry that I have a heart to share. I'm fine sharing what I'm going through with people, but I know that there has to be a boundary with who I share certain things with. And even if I make a boundary and say I can or cannot share this with you, how you respond to me setting a boundary, that's your problem. But I have to protect, myself as a leader, as a man of God. I have to protect also my family. And there are only certain people that get access to certain parts of me, and that's okay. And we have to be okay with that as leaders. Jesus was okay with that. He chose who went with him to the garden to pray. And so you got to know, you got to set those boundaries. So,
And another thing, the psychologist in me is coming out now. The other part of that is you will probably get blowback when you start to mention certain things, and it's not because they don't feel like you're ready, but they're not ready to deal with it because you're touching on something they are dealing with, and they're pulling back. So the drawback is them pulling back, and they're afraid that, oh my gosh, he knows what I'm going through. He knows something, and so you'll get the blowback because they're not ready to deal with theirs, and so they don't want you to deal with yours because they're not ready.
yeah.
So that's where a lot of the blowback comes from.
Yeah, I think, where my mind was going in response to that was that perhaps they felt like they were afraid that if you were transparent, that the Lord would respond in asking them to be transparent. Perhaps they're hiding behind them.
Yep.
That's what I was hearing.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all from this area or from different parts of the state or country?
We are all from different parts. He's from this area.
I'm local.
He's local.
Yeah, Christiansburg.
He's from Texas. The two of us are California, and my dad is from Missouri. Yes, sir. We're all over the place.
I have another question. You said y'all are involved in the
Yes, sir.
ministry?
Yes.
It's an outreach ministry for men. Yes, sir. Yes, we have information.
I'd like to get some of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And his stands for healing, inspiring, and supporting.
Yes, and
You say you're from Christiansburg?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. And it's life coaching mixed up. All of these guys they're in that. It's life coaching and mentoring specifically geared towards men. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is for each of you. Are you prepared for this book to go global? And what will your next steps be?
Well, at this time it has gone global. It has gone global. It has gone global, and the next steps. Everybody is calling for book 2. So I'm like, I don't know if they got enough tears left, but everybody's calling for book 2, and I've been in deep prayer about that. And I'm like, if the Lord says, yes, there's a book 2, and these guys say, yeah, I got something else I want to say and put out there, then be looking for book 2.
Yeah, I would say, next steps, just thinking about, it was funny, after you said that, January, I just wrote down 3 words. I got layers. And so in that, the Lord has taken me through things in my life to where there are layers to me that I've experienced pain, but then I've also experienced growth. And in that process of moving to a place of growth and stability, the places where I felt pain through going through those layers, He has now positioned me to be in a place where I'm ready to share more of those layers with the world and with other people so they can experience healing. And I would even say that to you all that are watching live and in the audience, that the Lord, there are certain things in your life that He will take you through, that you will journey through, that are layers in your life that you have to deal with and you have to wrestle with, and then also then present those things to the Lord and say, Lord, who is this for? Why did I go through this? Because everything that you've gone through has purpose. Every bit of pain in your life has purpose. There is a story behind your pain, and the Lord wants to bring you to a place of healing so that other people can experience healing through you. You have a voice. You have a sound. You have a destiny. You have a purpose in your pain. And so I believe that this is also a tool that the Lord is going to use to allow other men and other women to rise up and get up off your butt. Get up out of your seat and realize that what you went through, somebody needs to hear what you went through. Somebody needs to hear your story. It doesn't have to look like my story. It doesn't have to be like this book. It
Right.
has to be the way that God has given it to you
Yes.
to share.
Yes.
Amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Yes. And yeah, go ahead, Daddy.
Okay, and just to add to that, I'd like to say that regardless, you know, we've all, you're gonna go through a whole lot of things. And like I said, after the fall, because sooner or later you fall, and what do? You don't just stay down. You get back up, because you got to know that once you let God take control of your life, that He's gonna bless you regardless what you're going through. He's gonna bless you before you go through it, because He knows what you're gonna go through. Then He's gonna bless you once you're going through it. Then He's gonna bless you even more when you come out. See, so that's the way God has this already planned up for us. He got more blessings and more blessings. He's steady putting them in your path. All He asks you to do is continue to walk this way, and then you're gonna walk right into those blessings.
Yep.
One thing I look at, to answer your question, I think now, getting this out, there's still some more stuff to be told. And I would be wrong not to share it. And again, I'm grateful, for the opportunity. But the one thing that now I'm looking at it, I got a 20-year-old son, and he's watching Dad like a hawk. I've got to show him that even though life has given me some hard blows, that I can still rise up again.
Amen.
That with God, all things are possible. We have to be hungry. We have to be determined. And what I also look at is this: the stories and the things that God is allowing me to share, I've got to share it because there's somebody depending upon me to share it. Whether that's my future grandchildren, or whether that's relatives, or somebody that may know me, or somebody I may work with. Somebody is dependent upon me to share what I went through. And so that's why transparency is so critical. And I made a comment to someone, I can't remember exactly, but I said, if leaders would understand how much of an impact they have on the job, where they're at, doesn't matter. If they would just be transparent, because guess what? We're all broken. We all have fallen. But God is allowing us avenues and ways to get back up.
Yes.
We don't have to stay in what was done to us. We can be victorious. So, hey, it's already global, so ready to go with the next group. Amen.
Right.
Just real quick before this next question. If you haven't yet, wherever you're watching from, if you could just, there's a little button on your screen. If you can hit the share button.
Share the button.
Please
Yes.
share it.
Hit share.
Everybody say share.
Share.
Please share this.
Please share it.
Because someone else may want to hear this, needs
Yes,
to hear
needs
this.
to hear it.
So hit the share button and let some other viewers experience this.
Right, and I'm gonna get to our next question over there, and they were talking about my motto is falling is not failing.
Amen.
They fail, F-E-L-L. They didn't fail, F-A-I-L. So that's what I want someone to know. Falling is not failing. Jesus fell and he still got up. Okay. All right. We still have a question over here.
Queen back there.
The Queen.
Hey,
So I
baby.
just want to, first of all, just commend you all, for being here, Dr. Lomax, for just your leadership, and for you men being here and sharing your story openly, and then also having the courage to write the words and to allow them to be released into the world. And I think one of the things that's really telling about your ability is that anyone who takes the journey of healing must first sit with himself.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And so I want to commend you, and I think that, many times that is a part of the conversation that we don't really talk about on a deep level, but kudos to you for sitting with yourself. I'm a licensed therapist, and I sit with people all day long, and lots of men, and I know how difficult it is for any person to sit with themselves. But for people in our society who are told not to, that they're not allowed to, that they don't have permission to give yourself the permission to sit and to be still and to figure some things out, and for you all to invite the Lord into that space, which has allowed you to move and to experience the healing that you have. So I commend you on that. One of the things that I'm really interested in, just with the many hats that I wear, is that, you know, if you can think of, and this is posed to you all, but if there are other men in the room who have thoughts about this, something that maybe would be really useful to you in regards to creating more space or helping men have more permission to feel or to show up as they really are, whether it's in your own personal private space or in your families or your churches, in the community, in the workplace. I don't know. What, you know, is there a thing that you could think of that maybe like it would be nice if that would be helpful? And it can be the smallest thing, but I'm just curious.
For me, I shared it when I really came out with my story. What I ended up doing, I was stationed in Hawaii and went and took the SHARP class. And next thing I know, one soldier came up to tell her story. I wasn't expecting myself to move, but I heard God in my ear, move. And I got up and I went and shared it. Then from there, word came around on the island, and I ended up speaking to several units about it, and then in which to include my own unit. So that was like in 2000, I want to say 12. But then when it really made an impact was when I started finally dealing with it myself. There's a thing of being able to go out and tell folks that, yeah, this is what I went through, but it's another thing to actually have to start to deal with it, you know, to deal with self and the emotions and the things that you went through. And then I was blessed at Fort Hood during the April SHARP month. I was asked to speak. And normally I don't really have a hard time speaking. That was a hard time because now I'm dealing with it. But just being able to stand and to be able to show others, especially men, that it's okay. Once I think we allow men to know that we can heal, then that's when the process will begin. But it only takes one. It only takes one. And so in this case, if I can continue to do it and be able to share it with others, then hey, you know, because it's not about me. I'm just a vessel, you know, that's being used, and I thank God, you know, for the opportunity.
Yep. And I think, and you know, I'm always different than everybody else. I think also there needs to be in all communities the same way that we have support groups for women. We need them for men. There is nothing wrong with men sitting around in a restorative circle with the Kleenex. Men like cookies too. Okay, let's get the cookies and, you know what I mean? The cookies and the muffins and the, you know, the tea and the coffee out for them, and get the Kleenex and let them sit in a restorative circle and share with each other. And that's the thing. We have to allow them to do that and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's going to a support group. You know, yes, do that. Let them be vulnerable so they can deal with the pain, so they can deal with their trauma the same way that women do, because they support us when it's time for us to do that. They give us the space. They'll pay for us to go on all these different trips and spas and retreats and all this. There's nothing wrong with the men getting together and say, you know what, honey, me and Bob, we're going on a retreat. You know, we're going to go get some facials and the whole nine, and we're going to come back all refreshed. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, we're going to get our facials and everything and sit around and, you know, and eat the bonbons and talk about our feelings too. And, you know, and they need that. And they need to know that it's not wimpy, it's not girly, you know, that it's human. you are human and you need that the same way that your wife needs it. And so, and I think more wives should say, hey, dear, this year, I don't want that expensive, coat or the expensive shoes. Let's take this money. Let's get you on a retreat, or let us go on a retreat where we can get away from everybody and we can be vulnerable together.
And I speak this, I want to say this prophetically, that I believe that there is a rise of safe places for men that the world has not seen yet, that's going to bring a type of breakthrough, vulnerability, healing, forward movement that the world has not seen as of yet. And I'm thinking even along the first couple of men that I think about is Jonathan and David.
Mm-hmm.
They had a covenant. They had an instantaneous covenant, so much that Jonathan was able to. He gave up his right to the throne. Mm-hmm. He didn't allow his right to the throne to override or to fill the space of the covenant that he made with David, who became king. So much so that after Jonathan was out of the picture, down the road for David, there was a man by the name of Mephibosheth, and he was a cripple, and he had went to a place called Lodabar, where there was nothing, a barren place, because he was in such shame and in such brokenness that he felt like he wasn't any more good. But David said, it's time for me to bless and to sow seed and to honor anyone that's alive that was in the lineage of my best friend, in the lineage of my brother. And he brought Mephibosheth to the table, to where he was now seen as that royalty. And so in that, I just hear, the Lord really saying that he is going to create covenant bonds amongst men that is going to last through the lineage. It's going to go down through generations. He's going to create a new place of healing and transparency and breakthrough to where it's going to pass down through generations. And so, yeah, it's going to happen. There's some great things ahead.
It is. And just keeping in what he's talking about, the Bible didn't say that, Jonathan liked David or David liked Jonathan. He said he loved him. That's vulnerability right there, saying, hey, it's safe. We can talk to each other about anything. And I'm not going to look at you crazy and be like, oh my gosh, okay, that's girly. I don't want to hear that. But this is what this whole book thing is about. Yes. And I really honestly believe that God is going to use this to bring forth more men who are dealing with this and may feel like ashamed of things that happened to them that they didn't have control over. And this is a way that they're going to be able to say, you know what, I think I can talk about this now. Because I like for men to know that you are not what happened to you. You are you. You are not what happened to you. Anyone have any other questions?
Well, the further answer, of course, I think what we all talked about was what the one thing is creating an environment. That's going to be the key thing. Whether it's the facials, whether it's the basketball court, whether it's the football field, wherever that is. We have to create that environment where whatever that thing. I play rugby on the weekends, and we can go out there and play rugby and have fun, and everybody's having fun. And I think that's a big part of it. Just whatever that environment is for your culture and your society, for the men to come together, we have to create that.
Right.
This book is creating one foot here, so it can share that. Hey, there's an environment for you, your particular desires and your particular things that God has gifted you with. That He wants us to create that environment. Where it can be that place.
Amen. And the book is also, again, it's also a segue for someone who knows someone is dealing with something, and you're like, well, it's just, I don't feel comfortable with walking up to them and asking them, what's going on. You can walk up to them and say, hey, check out this book. Read this book.
Sow the book into someone's
life.
Yes.
Sow the book into someone. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
I just have a question for everyone. So with you opening up and being transparent and having the Lord lead, guide, and direct you, have you felt that your love, the love that you're able to feel and give has deepened?
Can you answer that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can wait. I've been talking a bit.
Well, you can answer it, Daddy.
Well, I think it has for me myself, you know, because like I said, I really didn't know these other three guys here at all, but I feel like, you know, through our book, it brought us a lot closer. I got a deeper feeling toward it, you know, so that we're supposed to love one another anyways. So, but this just like it gives you that boost. It's like we all got something in common. We family. And that's why we had to treat each other as like family. So it's quite natural. We're gonna show all the love we can. And in our profession and what we do, we have to do this. This is our job. We have we don't have no business of our own. We just like what Jesus said, I come to do my Father's business. We're about our Father's business. So, you know, this is the way that we have to be. And if everybody just think that way, we're not here, you know, about our business, but we're about our Father's business. And he said, the last thing he said, the greatest thing is for us to love one another. So this is the way that I feel. And I'm quite sure they feel the same way, because it's one thing about love. If you show love, somebody's going to feel that love. You're going to know love when you see love, when you used to get it.
Right.
That's what
And keeping in with that, as y'all can tell, we all ministry people, and keeping it in with that, and I'm just paraphrasing because I can't think of the scripture right off the top, but even after Peter did what he did, and he was so distraught that he did what he did, and the Lord told him, you know, basically, after you get yourself together, go back and strengthen your brothers. And that's what this is. This is them getting themselves together and going back to strengthen their brothers.
For me, made me think about that word vulnerability. And I try to be careful because I know people have different understandings or different insight about vulnerability versus transparency. And so when I think about transparency, I often think that people are talking about vulnerability. And so when I think about vulnerability, one of the things that I've come to realize and understand, you know, and having the most amazing counselor in the world is my wife, Russell Jones. You know, I get so many perks with that. But when I come to the table and being vulnerable, that means I'm opening up a door to be wounded. When I come to you and I tell you what's going on in my life, but then also tell you how I feel about it, I'm giving you direct access. I'm taking off my armor. I'm saying you can wound me. I give you permission to hurt me, because I'm giving you something that's deep and intimate, an intimate part of me. And so, but with that though, I also give that person an opportunity to show empathy towards me. But whether they give it or not, it doesn't define who I am. I'm still good, but I give you an opportunity to be empathetic, right? And so Jesus, he went through everything in life to where he knows us. He knows our story. In Hebrews, it talks about how he was able to be sympathetic with us, but really talking about being empathetic because of what he went through. And so then I thought about Galatians. And Galatians says, bear the burdens of each other. So when I'm able to be vulnerable with you, I am fulfilling God's desire for other people to have the opportunity to bear what I'm going through. When I don't allow that to happen, I don't give you an opportunity to be the fullness of what God wants you to be. And so in my ability to be able to share my vulnerability with, and what I'm going through with other people, it has increased the capacity for me to do the same on the other end. And it's a reciprocal thing, and it's a thing where if I am going through something, I want to share that with somebody, and then they respond in that way to where they're listening and they're loving me. Wow, they're loving me where I am. I just share with them something that they could easily reject me. I just shared something where they could look at me funny. I just shared something where it could change their whole perception of what they thought I was. That's risky. Yeah. That's risky behavior. Right. To really be vulnerable if you want to talk about it. But when I do that and then I see how they respond, it increases my ability on my end to then also love people where they are. So it's definitely been an experience where I've been able to grow to love people the more in their story, in their life, and what they're going through.
Yeah, I can say for myself, it has definitely helped me to be able to love more. I think I've always been at that place where I accepted folks regardless. Because the one thing that I realized is this: I don't have a heaven nor hell to put you in. So, but what I do is I love you because guess what? Christ said we're supposed to love. And so I figure, hey, if we do that anyway, then that will cut those bridges. That will bring us closer, and that'll allow us to, be able to relate to one another. To be able to, encourage one another, because we don't have enough encouragement going on, because we're constantly either we're beating somebody down or, somebody is, recovering. So, but the end state is love. And what is that? I'm going to love you just because. That's just like I had to say, because of what I went through, I didn't truly love myself. So how could I love my wife? So now I'm like, regardless of how you act, honey, I'm still going to love you. Just like my kids. Yeah, you may disappoint me, get me upset, but guess what? I'm still going to love you, regardless of what you do. So, and that goes to another brother. You can talk about me, say whatever you want. I may be a little angry with you, but guess what? I'm still going to love you, because if you need me to support you, I've got your back.
Amen.
I just wanted to add something that is so beautiful, that, the second commandment says to love your neighbor as
Yourself.
you love yourself. And being able to embrace the truth about where we are and walk towards healing is actually it's an act of self-love and an act of self-care. And the more that we're able to embrace and accept and love ourselves, it actually frees us and empowers us to love others more deeply. It's like what she was saying. It does. It expands our reach and our emotional ability to release love to other people. And so it's a gift to ourselves that actually pours out to other people in the world. Amazing.
Yes.
Sorry about retarding this out.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I'm glad I'm here. The Bible says, by this you all may know that you are my disciples, because I've loved one for another. But in this book, how close of a relationship has this book made the four of y'all, or the five of y'all? One is absent.
Yeah.
Let me, and you missed earlier. So this is our first time meeting. But when we first had our video conference on how the book was going to go and how things were going to be set, the time that we got on the phone, we laughed from the time we started until the time we got. So every time we've talked on the phone, we've gotten that much closer. Each time one of us has dealt with something, we've poured into each other. So when I can say this, I look at Mr. McClure as my father. I look at these two and the other brother that's not here as my brothers. We're connected, and we will be connected for life due to this book. We didn't know what we were writing about. We didn't know what the other wrote about. But to see how it meshed and how we've acted since we've been together with nonstop laughs. But that's a family. And that's, I can say that, definitely. I felt that from day one.
So you're telling me, from the book, that same spirit you guys had will be transferred in that book?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. And normally, I wouldn't say I guarantee you, but I guarantee you, any man that gets his hands on this book, you're going to feel like you are part of this family. I guarantee you that. And their contact information is in here so that other men can reach out. If they don't feel comfortable talking to their wife, talking to their mom, they can reach out to these guys. They are safe people that they can reach out to, because every man, I guarantee you, every man in this room can find himself in one of these stories in this book. Yes, ma'am.
Now, how suitable is this book for a 12-year-old? Because I was thinking about giving it to my grandson.
Very.
Does he watch Netflix? TV?
He watch Netflix. He can read it.
No, he doesn't watch Netflix. His mom's kind of strict on that.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
I just thought, so you think it'll be suitable for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I just thought, you men of God showing your struggles and being so transparent, and I just think he at some point can relate to it. I know the devil is going to try to tempt everyone, and he's already accepted Jesus as his Savior, and I just think just seeing what other men have gone through and how they overcame would be beneficial to him.
Let me speak a little more, because I think I explained a little more of my early years compared to the other stories, and giving some specific like when I was younger, I was bullied. You know, I got picked on, and in my story, I say that I was like a semi-cool nerd. My son laughing at me, but I was a peculiar child. I was one of a kind, and I played basketball. I was in the marching band, concert band. I was in Talented and Gifted, but I was an athlete, but I didn't play with my schoolwork. You know, so I was this blend, and I fit into different circles, but I was very passive. And the Lord has even begun to show me as I was writing my story, my own children and other children, and some of the passive behaviors that you can recognize in young people and how that can tie into bullying, even so to the point where I begin to talk with my own sons that when they don't get their way or something happens with the other, they have certain things that they do that are signs of passive aggressive or passive behavior, and the Lord has helped me to pull things out of them so that they don't get trapped in this idea that they have to be passive because mama and daddy said so. You know, and we got to begin to teach that to our children too, that why do I have to because I said so? No, that doesn't fly anymore, and that is not acceptable. Yeah, I am the father, and they listen to what I say, but they need explanation in a healthy way to that, because they are very intuitive and they're very intellectual, and they want explanation, not to be disrespectful, but for understanding. So I believe that if you, when you purchase the book, that you know, as you read it, and you may be selective with certain parts, but I think this is good for for boys as well, who are coming into, you know, going through the stage of puberty and into young adulthood, young people, youth. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, it's very suitable. And he may not relate to the stories, but I guarantee you he can relate to the emotions that comes from what they went through. If he's experienced death, some of these guys wrote about experienced death and how they dealt with that emotion.
His father just passed in July.
Okay, one of the brothers' stories in here, he's going to relate. The one that's not here with us, he's going to relate. I guarantee you he will. Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on Cheryl's question too, about, you know, being suitable for young boys and young men as they've grown up. From what I've heard, that we as men of God have been through things not of our own choice, and even though sometimes of our own choices. We need to start teaching the youth, like God said.
Yes.
Train your children where they should go.
That's right.
But we need to start teaching them now that you can come to me, you can come to the pastor, you can come to this, you can come to somebody and talk to them about anything that's in your heart and that's troubling you, hurting you, or you have questions about it. You know, because if we don't, the enemy's going to get it. And they're not going to learn this, and then we're going to have, as they grow to be young men and become adults, then we'll have to do the repair on it.
Right.
But if we prepare them, we'll have to do less repair in the future.
Yes.
I think if we mentor, we encourage them, we pull them when they're small, that's where we're going to get them. We've got to reach them as soon as they're young, because now this generation and the things that we're dealing with now are crazy. And it absolutely makes no sense. Right. And so we've got to go out. What do they say? We got to go back and take back what the enemy has stolen from us. That's our children. That's our sons. That's our daughters. We've got to go back and let them know, hey, guess what? You know, don't worry about being frustrated. Daddy didn't always have the answer either. I got frustrated. But if we can sit down together with multiple other men, the pastors, the other guys in the churches, the coaches, you know, some, you know, people who are young men can look upon and say, you know what, I like what he's doing. And if we can sit down with them and encourage them, that'll help. But that's where that mentorship comes in. We've got to do that, even at home. We've got to do it.
And just going along with what you're saying, it is so, and I know everybody's heard that, but it's easier to prepare a young man than to repair an older one.
Yes.
So it's easier to prepare them now.
I had 2 girls, I didn't have any boys, and I always told my daughters from a very young age, you can talk to me about anything. Of course, them being daughters, they did not. They want to try to go around me, try to go through their mother a lot. But I tried to give them that training and knowing that they was able to talk to me about anything. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if they'd done something or thinking about doing something, that I was there for them, I love them, and I give, I'll support them. And if things go wrong, I'm the forgiving father, I'm the one that loves them. And we need to do that to our young men too. And it's hard for us men. So you just think about how hard it is for a young boy, a young man growing up, peer pressure, trying to be vulnerable to in their background, in their time as age as they're growing up, you know, because a lot of people are just gonna laugh and bully them and do something to them, or make fun of them.
Right.
They open themselves up, but we need to start teaching that, not only in our families, but even in our schools.
Right.
It's, you know, and I applaud you for this book and the work that you're doing with this book. I think it's really a ministry that really needs to be in this time and this age.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'll shut up.
No, we welcome the question.
What I see from this is being an African American male. My father was a strong man.
Come on.
But he wasn't an emotional man. So growing up, I mean, I only knew that he was a provider.
Right.
A provider is just a provider, but not the emotional giver that maybe my mother need or the children need. So if it wasn't for Christ coming into my life as a young man, I probably wouldn't really know how to be a husband. And I applaud what's happening today, and more African American males should be in today, because a lot of men at my age, we went through that emotional struggle because daddies were, he provided, but he was never I never seen him do the emotional things like hug and share with your son. But you played sports and you were good at sports, and he never once embraced that. And that hurt. But what I'm saying is, it's an excellent thing, because if you can catch them now, and that's why I applaud you all. And when I saw that book, and it's been on Facebook, and I keep looking and looking, and then when you said, and Ms. Lomax, I watched you live, and you talk about the book. You really talked about the book, and that's why I'm here, because she embraced that book with you men that would touch society, and I believe that sowing into you into this book is going to be such a phenomenal. It's going to be something very phenomenal, and I believe that. That's why I'm here, because I could have stayed at home. I mean, I'm tired.
We thank you.
We thank you for coming.
But hitting on what you were saying about the men, growing up in an African American home, and the men being the providers, and them being stern and not showing emotions, and then we do that to our kids, and especially little boys, and you tell them stop crying, but you're telling them to stop doing what's natural. It's natural to cry when you're hurt. It's natural to act out when you're disappointed, and we're telling them to stop doing what's natural. And so they suppress that.
You made me think about something. I'm gonna share this. When I was a child, when I moved from, so I was born. What's not in this book is gonna be in another book. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. So we were isolated in Alaska. My family, my mom, dad, my siblings, and we moved to Freeman, Virginia. When I moved to Virginia, I was 8, and so the biggest influence in my life were my female cousins at the start. Okay, and so I stayed up under, for some reason, my grandmother, who was one of the world's greatest cooks. Everybody's grandma was a great cook, right? Amen. Anybody got no bad cooking grandma? If you do, I pray for you.
Right, in Jesus'
anyway,
name.
she could burn in that kitchen. Breakfast, cheese, eggs. Oh my God. And I know how to make those cheese eggs because I watched her make those cheese eggs. And so anyway, I'm not talking about food. We're going to shift. We're going to focus. But I had uncles and cousins, male uncles and male cousins around, never said it to me, but they thought that I was growing up to be, that I was gay. Because I like cooking, I like baking, and I like spending time with my grandma. And I was in church. And so as I grew up, not knowing that, just, being just bent towards certain things, just bent a little different. And I am an emotional man. And I embrace my emotions. I don't have a problem showing or sharing my emotions. And guess what? That is one of my strengths. Mm-hmm. And so my sons, they get that from me. They get the kisses and the hugs. And I think my youngest, he's like me times 10, But going through that was a season of my life where the Lord was, working in me and shaping me and molding me. And we got to begin to break this stigma, this idea that it's wrong for us to be emotional, that it's wrong for us to do certain things. And it's just not right. It's not serving our community well. And so I just wanted to, throw that little nugget, in there. Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this little nugget in there. And then we're going to let you guys purchase books and stuff and talk and give some more info. But we can't, as leaders, we can't preach the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept, and then tell people, especially men, that it's weak to cry. Jesus was emotional. He was very emotional, and he lost his emotional at times when people didn't think. He went in the temple turning over tables and flipping stuff. He was emotional. He cried in that garden. He was like, look, I don't really want to do this. If we can do this some other way, I don't want to do this. So we have to begin to, again, let men know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to share that with your loved one.
And another thing I want to say that just because you put your story out there and show people your vulnerability doesn't mean that you're weak.
That's it.
Okay, because see, you ain't powerful until you get some God in you. Once you know some Jesus, then you become some power. See, that's where your power comes from, because it said he's all powerful. So this is also part of the book of things that we had to learn, and I thought that I was a bad man when I was coming up. I used to do a whole lot of crazy things, which will probably be in the book, that next book, and some of the things I used to do. But I found out that when I found Jesus and put him in my life, that's when things begin to change. Because you're not going to change until you get some Jesus in you. And old saying that every time I turn around, you keep on blessing me. You're making me strong as I go, strong as I go, strong as I go. When I did the 180, I found out I didn't need the 360.
That's it.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
it. That's
Right.
it.
And with them opening up and putting this out there, it actually makes you stronger, and you take your power back. Because now it's not a secret. It's not something that you're running from and you're hiding and you're ducking and dodging. You took it back, and people probably talked about these guys and be like, well, such and such, such and such. And he's like, yep, sure did. Buy the book and read about it. So you take the power out of the secret, and you give the power to yourself by sharing it.
Yeah, I feel like the telling of your story is what makes you courageous in the Lord. And if the Lord's given us permission to come boldly before the throne of grace, we can come boldly and give a testimony and be a witness.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Anybody have anything else they want to share or add before we let them go crazy with the books?
Yes, I do.
Okay, come on,
Today
JJ.
is a very, very, very special day. It is January the 18th, which is my youngest son's birthday.
Amen. Happy birthday.
I want everybody on a count of 3 to just shout and say, "Happy birthday, Abraham." Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday, Abraham.
All right, y'all. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna open up, and you guys can purchase books, checks. If you're doing a check, it'll be made out to Jefferson since he's from here, and he'll make sure y'all get y'all money. But if you have Cash App, you can use my Cash App and I'll make sure they get their money. If you have PayPal, you can use my PayPal. I'll make sure they get their money. And we do have Venmo also. But if you have cash, we'll take your cash
We have
too.
refreshments in the back.
And there are refreshments in the back. We're gonna go back there and let the guys cut their cake and all that good stuff, because I got them a cake, because this is a auspicious occasion for them. And we thank everybody that's watching live. We thank y'all for watching live with us. And we'll be back on. Now it's time for the books. Now it's time to buy the book.
All right, three books.
Oh, he wants 3 books.
Yes, ma'am.
And they are $15 today instead of $20.
Y'all gonna all 3 sign them all.
Yeah, they're all
Maddox.
Yeah, 2 Maddox. Yeah, Maddox.
You want us all to sign?
M-A-D.
We're all gonna sign it.
Okay.
You say Maddox?
I'd like to
M-A-D-D-O-X.
You want to make a purchase, Abraham? Oh my goodness.
I try to be supportive when it comes to new businesses.
Okay. Well, amen. I have like Venmo or Cash App, PayPal. Oh, oh, I have like PayPal.
Yes, sir.
You can. Yes, ma'am. With PayPal, can't you like type it in with the PayPal?
Oh, thank you.
If not, what would be?
Would you be willing, I feel, you want to battle, have probably maybe.
I don't have my card reader.
Okay, and who's the other one too?
Well, I'm gonna see if I can get it.
Just write a check. Oh, okay.
H-A-R.
Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
H-A-R-L-O-S.
H-A-R-L-O-S.
Yes, the bookmarks. That make sure the purchase. Make sure everyone gets a bookmark and a card.
Is there any tax?
No, we don't do tax.
Yes, yes.
Well, my grandson is 12 years old.
Okay.
His name is Maddox. M-A-D-D-O-X.
I thought you could but you have to have the PayPal business
Yeah, probably
app
just,
where you can type in their credit card number. Amazing.
M-A-D-D-O-X.
Yeah. Yeah, so if they buy 3 books, they get 3 bookmarkers, 3 postcards.
What's the last one for you?
You gonna read it and you're gonna pass it? Yeah. Just put it, you bless it, because we just gonna read it and we're gonna pass it on.
Yes, sir.
How do you work out?
With the
Let me.
I have a PayPal account.
Okay.
okay, you can just send it straight to my PayPal.
I'll have to put your name.
Yes, sir.
I found it.
There it is. I see it right there.
Okay. I'm getting 4 books.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh, I don't have no.
You probably had to connect to the internet here in the library.
Okay, let me see that. Connection.
All right.
You don't want to see my grandson Maddox. He's 12 years old. M-A-D-D-O-X.
MADDOX.
And you guys are free to have some of the refreshments
Okay. Am I making this out?
You get 3.
Yeah, you're connected. Yeah, you are.
I will bring it to you.
I didn't color, but you and the salad is not right.
That's okay.
And if you want to take pictures with the author, you can. You're allowed to do that.
Since you rolled, no, that's
I drew you.
You drew me? Oh my goodness. Let me see. Where am I at?
Oh, wrong page. I couldn't do all of you guys in one.
There I am with the curly hair. That's
But
me.
the reason you're crying is because you had so much emotions, but they were like positive. So I liked you smiling with a tear though.
Okay.
And it was like representing like that.
Y'all know that's my baby. I don't know why y'all playing.
You had like lots of emotions, but
Mhm.
you know, it was just a mixture.
It was. Thank you, Abraham. Oh, you dropped your bookmarker. It's live. You're fine. They listen to everything.
My daughter.
Your daughter.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, pretty good.
Thank you. Let me give y'all a sneak peek too. This is amazing, y'all. Give y'all a sneak peek at the food and everybody that's here. Excuse me. Going over here where the food is. Get a picture of the food. I made sure they had a cake. Congratulations, authors. And this is Lady Rosa. She's JJ's wife, and she's one of our newest Hers girls.
And this is Cheryl.
This is Cheryl. Hi, thank you for coming.
Counselor too.
Oh, great. Thank you for coming and supporting. Thank you. And then this is Reverend Washington's friends. They came from West Virginia. They got on the road to be here. I was like, oh my gosh, they came all the way to see him.
He's kind of a special fellow.
Okay, I'll let it have it at that. Okay. He gives me so much grief.
Lighter mom and dad.
Okay, the lighter persuasion. That's them. That's his other set of parents. Yes, sir.
Is there any other way you all take payments that I can?
We do Cash App too. We have Cash App, we have PayPal, we have Venmo, or they can take a check
I
too.
didn't even think about bringing the check. I thought, maybe take a credit, debit card or something.
Let me. I'm gonna check my PayPal and see if I can take a debit card. just gonna set this here so they can hear me. I'm gonna leave it right there, Daddy.
Funny you put, I just put it in my chat. In my chat.
I just wanted to come because I see you put it up on Facebook. And I know that I was writing one too. So I want to send support you.
My son would appreciate it, even though my grandson about taking school right now, we're about to have to.
Thank you.
Did your wife ever say?
What's your name?
January.
Okay.
She was mad at me.
Yeah, well, you know.
I'll be seeing you soon.
As long as you're going to be at church tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Something sounds.
All right, you guys. I'll talk to y'all later. We're gonna go and take pictures and stuff. So thank y'all for going live with us and everything. This has just been amazing. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Dominic, we miss you. We're praying for you. We'll make sure you get your cut.
We'll eat it up.
We'll eat it up. Okay. All right, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.